this episode, Ms.Ministhy S. Nair, an IAS officer of the Uttar Pradesh cadre, spoke about her literary journey, translations, and about the experience of translating works of Malayalam writer V.J. James. She translates between four languages: English, Malayalam, Hindi, and Avadhi. Her translation of The Poison of Love by Malayalam novelist K.R. Meera was longlisted for the DSC Prize in the year 2017, and The Unseeing Idol of Light by the same author was shortlisted for the Crossword Book Jury Awards in 2018. Her translation of Anti-Clock was shortlisted for the JCB Prize for Literature in the year 2021. She has further translated Sundar Kanda, Kishkindha Kanda from Avadhi into English, and the poetry collections My Home After Me by Agneya from Hindi and The Heaviness of the Rain by Veerankutty from Malayalam. Ma'am, welcome to our podcast, Harshaniyam. Thank you for giving us time despite your busy schedule. Thank you very much.
It is my honor. Thank you, Anil, for the opportunity, and really mean it sincerely.
Ma'am, before we move on to literature, how do you create a separate mental space to really focus on writing and translation and all that? And additionally, reading. You are an voracious reader. How do you do that? How do you manage?
I, Anil, very frankly believe it is a question of using your time well. All of us have 24 hours. And I have been a very good time manager right from my childhood. I make it a point not to waste time frivolously. I plan my time. And if you really love doing something, we automatically find time. When people ask me this question, I give them an analogy. If you sit with a book, let us say 200 pages, and you decide, I have to translate it in 2 days' time, it is not going to happen, even if you're a genius. But if you decide, I'll do 1 page per day, it will take you 200 days. That's it. Correct? If you do 2 pages, it will take you 100 days. 100 means the first script can be out roughly in 3 months' time. Correct? Matlab, going by the logic. Now, the challenge is to make sure that that particular target which you set for yourself, that 2 pages you have to do. Come, like there's that poem of the highwayman, come hello high water, the highwayman comes riding. So we have to be consistent with our this thing. So I make it a point, even if I'm very tired, if I have translation to do, if I have to do 2 pages, that 2 pages I do. So I give myself a target for the first script, first manuscript, and typically, even if it is a very big novel like Nirishwaran, I usually get the first script out in 2.5 to 3 months' time.
Now, you are in the Indian Administrative Service and dealing largely with issues related to the public, right? And of course, you are a writer and translator
Yes.
too. I mean, to ask you, is there any way one would enrich the other?
Right. Again, I do believe that your ability to be sensitive, your observation capabilities, your sense of humor, the nuances you pick from the people you interact with actually enhances you as a writer, and holistically, we are just one human being, correct? If I'm sensitive in my job, I bring in the same sensitivity to my reading and writing space also. I also believe that a job is just a job. At the end of the day, you can be a doctor, an engineer, whatever work you practice is just one role you play on the stage of life. I have a lot of other roles. I'm a mother, I'm a sister. So many roles we have to play. All of us do that. So, writer or reading, these are all roles which we play. And the more integrated we are, the more in consonance each of these roles are with each other, I think that makes us a better human being, right? So if I'm, let us say, I've had a very good day at work, okay, I could help somebody wanted a transfer, I could do it. I carry the joy with me when I come back home. If I read a good book and I'm happy, probably I carry the joy back to my workplace. So it's a very integrated whole. And I definitely believe the more passions which we can pick, the more hobbies we do, the more multifaceted we are, the more we read in different languages, if we can read, different genres you explore, the more broad-minded and generous and kind-hearted you become. And that is the aspiration I have.
I think you had a long career in Indian administrative service. Are there any specific assignments in your service which gave you a lot of satisfaction?
It's a privilege actually to be in the Indian Administrative Service, the sort of variety you have. And I'm a Malayali. I'm working 3,000 kilometers away from my home, but now UP is my home. I know each and I love the state, and the sort of as a because you are in the service. The true word it is service. So the moment there is a joke actually. Sometimes the civil servant is neither civil nor a servant, but then I try to keep the service part ingrained. Even as a district magistrate, let us say there is a flood going on, and yeah, and you're out there handling floods, you're giving relief. I've been fortunate to work as district collector and magistrate of almost 5 districts, handling elections, floods. But one assignment, because we get to do a variety of assignments in the IAS. Currently, I'm GST commissioner. But one assignment which gave me immense satisfaction was when I was special secretary in the Home Department, and I was handling anti-human trafficking initiatives, for which I was fortunate to win a couple of awards also, the Indian Express Award and the US Consulate Award. What we did was we worked with different departments like women and child, or police, or NGOs, and railways, and we trained almost 3,000 stakeholders, different people, college students, villagers, in order to make them aware of what is human trafficking. So that gave me immense satisfaction because, after the trade of guns and ammunition and drugs, the most lucrative trade is selling of human body. Now, age has no bar. It was a shocking information for me. How I got to know, and that is also an interesting thing, was on a Saturday there was a seminar on human trafficking. And usually on a Saturday we don't go for seminars, right? We just delegate it to somebody and we enjoy at home. But something in me said go attend, and when I attended, a victim who was a little girl child during the Gujarat earthquake, who lost her parents, who was taken and sold in a brothel. And this is what happens during disasters. Maximum human trafficking happens. The reality. She told how, as an orphan, she was sold to the brothel in GB Street in Delhi, and she narrated a life story. I had tears in my eyes when she said that she suffered through AIDS and she had children, and she got out of it with the help of an NGO. And when she was walking, she saw the same man who sold her come along with another 10-year-old girl, and she went and grabbed his collar and took him to the police station. And she was weeping by the time. The judges, the bureaucrats, half of us were in tears. you know when you see that sort of reality, and when you find that you're in a position of power to do whatever you can, it gives you an immense sense of responsibility. So my work with UNICEF and a lot of agencies for anti-human trafficking and helping women and children, that probably is one of the most satisfying career experiences I've had.
Now, your interest in reading literature, when did it start?
Oh, I grew up in a family surrounded by books. My father's a voracious reader. Now he's 89, the most brilliant man I've ever met in my life. We had books and magazines all over the place. My father, Acha, we called him. We used to have, multiple languages in Malayalam, and translations, and from, so growing up in a culture in Kerala, you should understand, had a very rich library culture. The Vainashala movement, probably, every village had a library. My mother made it sure that we were members of like 4 or 5 libraries. All my vacations was spent inside. She was working, so she'll pack me off to the public library, give me food, come in the afternoon, check on me, walk all the way in the sunlight. I mean, we are what we are because of our parents, and the culture of giving importance to reading and education in my family, and that continues till today. My brother reads, I read, we discuss books, movies, so first gratitude for very empowered educated parents who made sure that books were always there. We grew up seeing them read, and that is something which I practice till today. My children read probably because they see me read. There is a cartoon, I would love to narrate it here. The cartoon is very evocative. I mean, there are two mothers. One has an iPad in her hand, her and her child has an iPad in the hand. The other mother has a book in the hand, her daughter has a book in the hand, and there is only one conversation in the cartoon: how do you get her to read? So the mother is asking the one with the iPad. The question and the answer is right there. So I practice what my father taught me. So point number one, growing up in a family, with books. Second, I've always had interest in different languages. And when I landed in Uttar Pradesh, although I studied Hindi only till 10th standard, then came this wonderful opportunity of learning the different dialects of Hindi. So I started understanding Avadhi, and I started translating from Avadhi also, apart from English and Malayalam.
So, when and why did you start writing and translating?
I was actually trying to collate the number of books. I realized to my utter surprise, I've written more than 20 books, Actually writing it down because of this interview. So, the first book I published was as an IS, as a sub collector in Jhansi. It was a short story collection called Unequal Equations. I do think this, it is in print. The original version had beautiful pictures, but then, now the latest edition available does not have pictures, but it is still available in Amazon. Unequal Equations, probably somewhere when I was SDM, 2005 or 2006.
Right.
Then I wrote a lot of children's books. I wrote moral stories for children, mythological based. Then I wrote poems for children. So I got into that.
Okay.
Then a lot of essays on my work experience. I wrote all the interesting humorous anecdotes I compiled. And then said she and all. Oh, a lot of funny episodes. As a collector who didn't know Hindi, who get confused, sitting in court, and all sorts of experiences. So those are in my essay collections. So then I wrote a novel somewhere in 2006. I wrote a novel which was published by a Bangalore-based publisher. It is a detective novel called Anklets at Sunset. Three old men, can't see, can't hear, can't speak. Murder which they witness and how they investigate and all that. So that was my foray into writing. My journey into translation began in 2016. My daughter had gone to USA for her undergrad. She is now going to start a PhD in mathematics. So at that time I missed her so much, and I'm also a big time Hanuman Bhakt. Okay, so I wanted to do something so that the protection of Hanumanji will be with her, and my agony of being away from her is also. So I started translating very personally in my WordPress blog few shlokas from Sundar. Tulsidas Ji is a translation of Ramayana. We all grew up reading Ramayana in our own mother tongue, right? I'm very familiar with Adhyatma Ramayana by Tunja Tirthachan, the father of Malayalam literature. We studied him in school. We grew up reciting the prayers in the evening time. We light the lamp and recite Ramayana also. We had the culture of that. So when I went through Sundarkand, and it is the most recited, most loved prayer, and it is the most beautiful canto because Hanuman crosses over Lanka and does this, assignment. He completes assignment given to him by Sri Ramchandra. He is the epitome of humility, kindness. He's a role model in a lot of ways. So the miracle was, there are certain magical things which happen when you translate, and I would really love to say this. Now, Tulsidas Ji translated this in a district called Chitrakoot. Okay, and even now there are remains of his manuscript. Akbar had given some property to Tulsidas Ji. There are so many stories. Now, unexpectedly, in between translation, I got an opportunity. I was sent as a nodal officer to check on malnutrition of all places in Chitrakoot. I was again in home department. Then I asked the inspector who was accompanying me, and ye kaun sa hai? Kyunki I knew obviously that Sri Ram ji and all, they stayed in Chitrakoot. Then they said, Madam, do you know Tulsidas ji Rajapur mein baith ke he had translated, we'll take you. I was so astounded. I was literally telling Bhagwan, you are sitting somewhere and you're watching that Ministry is struggling to translate Sundarkanda from Hindi to English. So you decide, let me send it to Chitrakoot for a day. You're actually laughing at me, right? Whatever said or done, I came back inspired. And then you will not believe, on the 50th day, I completed the translation. I used to do it every single day. On the 50th day, 50 chapters, Sundarkand got completed. Till today, out of the 7 cantos, I've translated 4. The 4th is under publication. Sundarkand, basically it's transliteration. I interpret the words with a lot of beautiful pictures. So Sundarkand, then Kishkindha Kand in 2019. Last year, Aranyakand was published, the forest canto. And Lanka Kand, the fight between Sri Ram and Ravan, that is under publication right now. 4. There are 3 more. Hopefully, Bhagwan, if he wants, he will let me complete all the 7.
Now, when it comes to novels, ma'am, the fiction,
yes.
the regular
yes.
Fiction, you started with K.R. Meera, right?
Yes, I did.
She's also a very popular Malayalam, right? She writes in Malayalam too, and she's a winner of Kendra Sahitya Akademi Award too, I
yes,
believe, right?
Yes, absolutely. So many awards. we had some mutual friends. We had a couple of lady friends, very brilliant, women. I mean, I can quote their name very proudly. Piyush is a very senior policy officer, Dr. Piyush Antony. They read in multiple languages. Dr. Thanya, she's a neonatologist. So we have common friends, and Meera had come to visit them. So Piyush told me, Mini, come over, we will have dinner together. So I went because I was a super fan of Meera. Very powerful writer. What a brilliant mind. So when we went, I asked Meera, your books have been translated, but tell me, Meera Sadhu, this is about an IIT girl who ends up as a widow in Vrindavan. And it is in Malayalam, the novella is so power packed, you can't eat anything after you read that book. Gut wrenching book. You'll be weeping, you will not be able to eat anything. If you truly get into it, it's a very visceral experience. So I said, how come nobody has translated Meera Sadhu? She said, Mini, a lot of people told me we will not do it. It is horrifying. I can't do it, because she said that's sort of an experience because you become part of that experience and it's a very traumatizing novel. I said, can I try? Something in me made me ask her, can I try? I've never translated, okay, English in Malayalam. She said, why not? And you will not believe it, Anil. I came out of the first draft in 1 week's time. So then what happened is Penguin gave me and Meera a double book deal. I would like to thank Amba Chatterjee at that time. So Netron Milanam, another book, Unseeing Idol of Light. So we got a double book deal, and I ended up translating both. Poison of Love, Meera Sadhu. It made it into the DSC South Asian Literature long list. And Unseeing Idol of Light made it in the top 5 of Crossword shortlist. So that's how the journey started.
I think you have translated 5 novels of Vijay James so far, right?
Six now, six totally.
Six, six. So
Yeah, yeah.
okay. What makes his writing unique, in your opinion?
Vijay James is amazingly brilliant. He's a scientist, a rank holder engineer, who, if you notice, is very very erudite. He is a master of he has learned so many books, Hindu spirituality, any religious book, deep knowledge in different things, and this unique humanitarian perspective, a sense of humor, a subtle sense of humor, narrating the lives of the marginalized in a very simple form. I don't know if you've read Anti-Clock.
Anti-Clock I read, yes.
Yes, the
Yeah.
one which came into the JCB
Yes,
shortlist.
yes,
So
yes.
now the journey with James also is very interesting. Again, how serendipity plays a part. His first book, the Book of Exodus, which was the first book we translated together, which took him 12 years to write, and which will be published by Penguin next year, by the way. In the series of Book of Exodus is going to come out in probably January or February of next year. They're editing. So what happened is I had gone to Kerala, and DC Books is one of the most famous publishers. So I went to DC bookstore and I saw this book, Purappad Pustakam. Now Purappad Pustakam is very attractive as a title, the Book of Exodus. So I read it. I was so enchanted by its depth. It's about the rites and the rituals, and so many beautiful characters about nature, how we are losing it, sadness, loss, philosophy, Bible. It's absolutely amazing. So when I read it, I was desperate. I went, hey, this is something which I should be translating. This requires a global audience. It was so beautiful. So I was checking. The problem is, I really wish through your video that this message comes through. You should always leave the email address of the writer. Maybe some translator sometime can reach out. Otherwise, sometimes you have the impulse, but if there's no contact address, then you leave it, and that opportunity. So DC fortunately had given James's email ID. I simply sent him an email saying, I'm so impressed by your book. I'm an IS officer and I translated 2 books of K.R. Meera. If you're willing, I would love to translate this book. That's it. Now, by the time somebody had already translated James, Chora Shastra, it was already published in Harper, but James was so kind. He wrote back saying, Mini, it'll be an absolute privilege. You please go ahead, That sort of a trust and understanding. So that is how it started. And then from that day till today, 6 novels we have done together.
I read 3 of his books. In fact, the third one, Dattapaharam, is I am halfway through. This Anti-Clock, Niriswaran and Dattapaharam, he talks about science and philosophy. When I say
Yes.
philosophy, he quotes from Hindu scriptures widely. He writes it in a very simplistic way that anybody can understand. You are the translator for all the 3, Anti-Clock, Niriswaran and Dattapaharam.
Yes.
Thematically, how do you differentiate?
Yes. Every book of James, you don't, when you read 3 books, you feel as if you're, writing 3 different authors. I mean, The style, the tenor, but underlying themes are the same. That is the thing. As a translator, because literally you are like a foster mother, you probably read a book much deeper than the writer, because first you read it as a reader, then you read it as a translator, the number of times. Anti-Clock is full of sadness, a black humor, the style of writing. It is very different from Nirishwaran. Nirishwaran is satire, the language, the dialectical materialism, the humor, the size, the style is very different. Now you come to Dattapaharam, it's like a mystery novel. Okay, you're like, you don't know what is going to happen. You come to Exodus, it's a totally different, it flows like a stream. So the style, the narrative, the pitch, all of it is different. But if you go deeper, as a translator does, I found the underlying themes are always a heart full of generosity, speaking about tolerance, compassion, scientific rational outlook, also giving space to magical things happening, kindness. There are certain underlying themes as a scientist and as a writer, which is seamlessly brings in spirituality and science together. Amazing. Now we share a common background. Both of us are engineers. James and I are engineers. I'm also a BTech. So I certainly believe had I not had a science and engineering background, I would have struggled to translate his books. You can't, define, resonance and translate that.
Correct.
If you look at it, everything is linked to the topic also. Like when he says about chaos and, and he defines the differential equation. I mean, if you go deeper, there is another link, he leaves it to the reader, the background which we shared. And also, like James, I also used to read a lot, so probably the familiarity with spiritual books and text helped me a lot. The Holy Bible, right from Meera's books, the Malayalam version and the English version, I have both the Bible versions with me, and I'm very close to the missionary sisters. A lot of them work in Lucknow and UP. Whenever I have any doubt in the about the Bible, I would run to them. They'll give me tapioca and fish curry and also tell me all the nuances of Bible. That's how, sacramental bread. I will ask them what is this meaning. James also is very, very generous with his time and explanation. When I reach out, the wonderful fact is we met each other for the first time during the JCB awards ceremony. We'd never seen each other before. It was only through phone and WhatsApp. Even WhatsApp video call we never did. Just phone me, you know so we met each other for the first time in JCB. But the space and the understanding and the respect he gives to me as a translator, which I think is something which every translator should speak about. I would not have been able to do justice to his books, but for the dedication with which he gives feedback, he gives me the space and the respect.
Being a practicing Christian, his knowledge and understanding of Hindu scriptures, it amazes me actually. It really
Yes,
amazes me. And in fact, in one of the interviews I was looking at, he says he was quoting from Lalita Sahasranama.
exactly. Ishwaraya Nama. Nirishwara, transcending the God, is a word of Lalita. So I am also a practicing Hindu. I also had to go back and read and understand, And then I found, oh, you will be surprised. In the book of Exodus, he is also a big Hanuman Bhakta, by the way. Although he is a practicing Christian, the sort of insights about Hanumanji and the shlokas which he has defined.
My God.
Although I have translated 4 books from Sri Ramcharitamanas, I have never had the opportunity to know the shlokas in the books. I asked him, "Kahan se ye dhoond ke aate hain?" He laughs. He says a lot of things should not be revealed. That is what he says. But amazing insights into Hanumanji you will get in the next book.
And the contrast, see, he talks about all these complex, serious things like philosophy
Yes.
or spirituality and all. But his protagonists are very, very ordinary characters. And he makes you believe that these people can understand and talk about it and discuss about it. I think that's the beauty of his writing.
Absolutely.
In this Niriswaran, one of the main protagonists is a prostitute in a village.
Correct. Janaki. Absolutely.
Janaki. And in this Dattapaharam, that Fredericks is just an ordinary engineering student, right? And out of all things, that anti-clock, that gentleman is a coffin maker.
Coffin maker. You're very right. Roberto, the scientist, is explaining the concept of zero and balance and
Yes,
relativity
yes.
to a village prostitute, and says ki Janaki, compared to a lot of scientists, you have such insights. into the world, and all you need is this, open hearted, it's such amazing insights. One interesting conversation. So I asked him one or two references, very complicated. If you remember Surya Godi, Shadaprabha, वो वाला, तो code is Surya Prabha, so 100 crore suns. So I was telling, so he says, see, fission and fusion and all of this has been explored long time before. I said, where do you get all this? So I said, Mini, I would suggest that sometime when you get time, you read Yoga Vasishta and Ashtavakra Gita. I almost fell off the chair, okay? So this is what he told me. I almost fell off the chair. I said, James, even for translating your book. And I actually purchased Ashtavakra Gita and Yoga Vasishta from Gita Press. And it is so voluminous and so complicated. I have just kept it as a puja wala kitab only. I'm not had the daring to read those books again. So I said, you please summarize it and tell me. I really don't have the capacity to understand these books. So that is a sort of in-depth analysis he does.
Now, which one of these books is the most challenging to translate out of all these books?
Oh, of all the books I've translated, Nirishwaran was the most challenging to translate.
Why was that, ma'am?
Because Nirishwaran, unlike Anti-Clock, see, Anti-Clock is from a perspective of a coffin maker, correct? And it flows. It's through the ordinary life. The Tapaharam, again, engineering. James said for him, the Tapaharam was the toughest book.
Mm-hmm.
Exodus, again, it's village life. I'm familiar. Now, for the first time, Shankara's Advaita philosophy, a concept of a man having out-of-body experiences after death, parallel worlds, explaining all of this using the scientific tools. A scientist who explains the concept of smells and microcosm and macrocosm. My God, it was so challenging for me intellectually. I had to go back to my engineering textbooks, my physics textbooks, abhi yaar, ye time wala. It is a concept of time and space, and I really had to work extremely hard, read up, but it is immensely satisfying. Now, James is such a meticulous writer.
Mm-hmm.
If a comma in the original, he says, Mini, I must have toiled over each sentence for 2-3 months. If a comma is there, it is there for a reason. If an actor structure is there, direct speech is there, it is for a reason. Now, we have this conversation. I said direct speech sometimes doesn't translate literally into English. I might have to convert it into indirect speech. But still, he says, let's try to be as faithful to the original spirit as possible without losing the beauty. So, if a word like TOO, sometimes, I leave it, but rest assured the feedback will come. Meaning the 2 is missing here. That is a sort of dedication. So when a person sets a benchmark so high, my skill as an editor and translator also improved working with him. And he will give such beautiful insights. So the passion with which the writer gives you feedback and works along with you. We do intense amount of editing together. First, I do the whole book. I send it to him. Then he will give me general feedback. Then I rework and send it to him. Then every sentence, even if it is 1 lakh words, we edit together. So that's a sort of unsaid hard work which has gone behind each and every one of the book. People see only the final product. People don't realize how many hours. And this is after holding full-time jobs. James was a scientist. He retired as a senior scientist of VSSC. He managed to write all of this while holding, managing responsibility as a family householder and a scientist. So, very inspiring that way.
Now, what are the current projects that you are working on, ma'am? The books?
Like I told you, James's first book, which we translate for the first time together, it took 12 years in Malayalam. It took sweet another 7 years in English also, because we completed it in 2018. But another 5 years it has taken. Almost from the day 17 se leke, probably it will get published next year, 2024. So 17 was the time when I started translating it. So Book of Exodus is going to come next year. So that is with Penguin now. We have written 2 more of his novellas. One is Laika, the first dog with the Russians sent to space, if you remember. He has written a novella about it from the perspective of a Russian scientist,
right,
who was taking care of Laika. It is a novella. Then there is a novella called One-Legged Crow. And that is also a very mysterious, surreal sort of a book. So these 2 novellas, probably we are trying to, so we just completed it and it's with the literary agent right now. So 3 books of James is there. Sonia Rafiq is a very brilliant writer. She's an agricultural scientist based in Dubai. Her books have won DC awards and, a lot of awards. And James was in the award committee, if you look at the coincidence of that. So, which I discovered later. So her book is part of the BA Malayalam Literature syllabus of Kerala University also. She is very much into nature, environmentalism. So the first book is Herbarium, from the point of view of a motherless little boy, how he's discovering nature. It's a beautiful book. It's again with the literary agent. And there is a book called House of Girls about the lives of three Arab women in 1950 UAE. So it's like a story within a story, Shara Said's style of writing. So these two books of Sonia's have translated. So these two books are with the literary agent. So these are a couple of projects, and I have also translated, like I told you, Lanka Kand. So which is again with my publisher.
What is finally, before we end the conversation, how is the translation scene in Malayalam, ma'am? Malayalam to English?
Malayalam is very blessed in the sense that, we grew up reading classics, world classics translated in Malayalam. All the Russian books, Dostoevsky, everything, we all, Marcus is a big name. Every Malayali who reads has read Marcus in Malayalam. Translated. So we had brilliant writers. I remember reading Khandekar's Yayati in Malayalam. Okay, Asha Purna Devi, all the Pradham Pradeshwadi, Bagul Kada I read in Malayalam as a high school student. Nirmal Verma short stories. So literary magazines, Madhrubhumi, Doordarshini, I remember Bengali novels. So we were introduced to world literature through serialized novels in Malayalam literary magazines or books. We grew up in a culture of translation, never really realizing the amount of hard work and erudition which had gone in. Today, I wonder about those translators. We simply assumed it just appeared out of the blue. But there was somebody sitting and burning the midnight toil and translating all of this. Correct. So because of that richness, now if you look at Malayalam, you will find Fatima is there, you'll find Shahnaz Habib, so many women, Jayashree Kalathil, who have won a multiple series of awards, JCB, Crossword, everything. And now HarperCollins, Penguin, Westland, everybody has got a translation wing. They're actively encouraging. Or books have won a lot of awards. Malayalam, it was almost like JCB was only being won by Malayalam authors at one particular time. We were competing with each other half the time in long list and short list. So this culture of finding bilingual and multilingual readers and writers in Malayalam. You can be a doctor, but maybe on the side you're doing, translation. So this sort of a culture. So I really have great hopes of Malayalam, and I've been reading some new writers also. Very promising works. I just DC books. They keep publishing young authors, and I find a lot of promising young writers. So I think very exciting things. I only wish other languages in India also had this culture, because I would love to read, I read Draupadi, and Yajnaseni and Karna, Shivaji Savar, and then all Mrityunjay and everything, either in Malayalam and English. I would love to read various novels in my, of my country, of other states, but unfortunately, we don't have a venue, right? It's only through English if it comes and somebody can translate from English to that. My hope and prayer is we start recognizing translators for what they are. Anil, for example, for the first two books, my name appeared in the back cover in very small print. So the culture, I'm telling you, this was translators across the world had to fight to have their names come in the front cover, and even now the font size is different. So I am hoping for a day in which these international translation awards and all recognizes. It's a partnership. So we have to value people, because there is no money out of this. Half of us are doing it for the sheer pleasure and contribution to literature. So we have to respect this profession, and we have to respect our translators. That would be my request at the end of the interview. I would like to thank Priyamvada, because she is my junior in XLRI, and also she translated J. Mohan, is one of my most favorite writers. Whatever book he has written in Malayalam or translated into Malayalam, I will stand in a queue and read it. That's the sort of fascination I have for the power of his writing. Oh my God. I'm speechless when it comes to describing his power of his words, right? So I would like to thank Priyamvada for introducing your wonderful team to me all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anil.